So you've been in love with her for 50 years?
More than 50 years, correct.
Really? And we're going to get into the book and how it all came about. But what does that feel like to be in love with the same person for more than 50 years? What does that feel like?
She's totally different than she was.
When you first met her?
Yeah.
And what's the difference? What was she like when you first met her and now?
When I first met her, she was very cooperative. She did whatever I wanted. And we had 10 years of a lovely marriage.
Right, 10 years.
And then she went back to graduate school, got her degree, and she changed.
All hell broke loose.
Well, she started having her own ideas of how things should be.
Wow.
And she wasn't so cooperative.
Really? And so why did you send her back once she started acting that way? Why didn't you send her back home to her parents?
We had 2 kids.
Oh.
And if it wasn't for that, I would have left.
Amazing. Did you know that before today?
I don't believe him.
You don't believe him?
You know, I think.
Speak a little loud for me.
I think our motivation to work on things definitely came from having 2 children,
Right.
and maybe we wouldn't have been as determined to find solutions to our differences. But so children are a great motivator.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And so it might be true.
But didn't you change after 10 years, you became a different person?
Well, yeah, I think when couples get together, they accentuate their affinities, and so there's, we agreed on a lot of things, and then over time, you realize you're different, and that's when conflicts arise.
Yeah.
And it's a natural evolution. There's nothing wrong, but it can be very complicated and painful for couples because they don't understand it.
Are you surprised he stayed with you after you changed? After 10 years, you changed? Are you surprised? Except for the children, are you surprised he stayed with you?
Gosh, it was a very tense time, and it wasn't a pleasant experience for me either. But I come from a family where my mother was divorced when I was very young, and I lived for a while without any dad, and then I had a new father, and I just appreciate a mother and a father together.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference. And so for each of our unique reasons, we persevered, and we found mentors who helped us learn and grow. We wouldn't have known how to do it without that.
Do you love him now, 50 years later?
With all my heart.
You do? Mm-hmm. And how do you know you love him?
He touches my soul all the time. He's such a good man. I love his spirit. He's kind and he cares for people, and he's a phenomenal father. And I just feel his love, and we have mutual values.
Amazing.
And so it's just a great life.
And do you obey him?
Well, I don't look to be an obstacle, but I look to be supportive.
And do you obey him?
In a sense, yes. I don't like the word, but I cooperate because I want him to have what he wants.
You don't like what word?
I don't know that I like the word obey. It's a religious word for sure.
Right.
But if I have a strong point of view, we have calm conversations, and we sort it out. I don't do anything that I think compromises my soul. But we found a way to work together where it's to do what Michael wants me to do is really a pleasure and an honor.
Nice. And why don't you obey him?
Because I'm an American child of the '60s, and so there's a certain spunky thing about me, and so I have to check my own point of view and not ignore it.
Amazing. Does she obey you, Michael?
When we have a disagreement, we have processes that we have been practicing for 40 years that allow us to share deeply with each other. And it allows me to see, oh, look how she experiences the world. It's so different than how I experience it.
Yes.
And that's why she thinks that way, and that's why she has these strong opinions. Oh, and it forces me to expand my perspective, and the same for her, to expand her perspective, and then we have to come to agreement.
Yeah.
But it's not quite the obey, but it is listening to each other with an open mind and open heart, and expanding our point of view, and then we have to come to an agreement.
Yeah. What a mess. Turn that fan on for me. What a mess. You mentioned that Obey is a Christian religious way. Are you guys Christians? Because I think I heard one of you guys are Jewish, right?
We're both Jewish. I have a Christian seminary education. I have a PhD from Claremont School of Theology, and I went to Union Theological Seminary in New York as well.
Oh.
I was a chaplain at St. Joseph Hospital.
Really? Mm-hmm. So you're a Christian or Jewish?
I'm Jewish, but Christianity is, a brother sister to Judaism. It's very close.
Oh.
And I'm, happy to participate in valuing and respecting Christianity with a deep heart.
Oh, okay. And so are you Jewish or Christian?
Jewish.
You're Jewish. How did you end up with a Christian woman? How did that work?
We go to a Jewish synagogue. I'm happy to have her enjoy whatever she enjoys with her experience. It doesn't interfere with being Jewish.
Right.
It's not an interference at all.
Nice. I like when I was growing up, it was understood that Judaism and Christianity was like brother and sister one.
Yes.
So I grew up with that all my life.
Yes.
And I'm surprised, to be honest with you, to see that changing with some Christians and Jews. They seem not to understand the relationship between Judaism and Christianity.
Yes.
It's an important spiritual relationship, but it's being distorted now.
Yes.
And that's not good.
Correct.
I don't think it's good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you believe that human beings are in a fallen state?
Yes.
And what does that mean to be in a fallen state?
It means that we're not whole.
Yeah.
We're not. We've got work to do in our lives to improve ourselves, to learn, and to connect with our source.
Yeah. Do you believe that human beings are in a fallen state today?
Yeah, they are, and that's why we have laws and rules that you have to obey them, because left to yourself, not going to happen.
I know. What a mess, huh? Let me ask this, and then I have a question about your book. A couple questions. How do you see the world now? When you look around your environment in the United States and even around the world, but especially in the United States, how do you see things today as opposed to the way it was when you were growing up?
It's changed quite a bit. When I was growing up, I'm 74, most women were not working.
Yeah.
They were home with the kids.
Yeah.
And if you were working, it was just some part-time stuff, or the kids already were grown.
Yeah. I remember those days.
And mother was always around, and that was the way it was. And if you were playing out in the street, one of the parents was always around.
Yeah.
You were never quite on your own. And you don't have that now.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, Friday afternoon in public school in New York City, you had services, you read from the Bible, you said prayers, you sang hymns. Whatever religion you were doing that.
Yeah.
And at 1964, it stopped.
Amazing.
And I missed that a lot. That was my favorite time of being in school. And I missed that. And so now kids don't even get an opportunity to learn any of that in school.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things that are different. And women now have changed so much. They are taught to be masculine.
Yeah.
And they're not taught to be nurturing. Everything has to be done a certain way. You're at work, you got to do it. And then you come home, and it's hard to be nurturing. It affects the family life a lot.
Yeah. I would never marry a woman that is not willing to stay home and watch over my children. You agree to that?
That's the best thing.
Yeah.
Now, the other way that I grew up, my mom would go to the family store, and we were all at the store together,
Yeah.
and we were all working together as a team.
Yeah.
So that's a different way. You used to get a lot of that. Now you don't have that.
Do you agree that a man should not marry a woman who's unwilling to stay home and watch over his children?
Oh, that's a complicated question. You know, we're a partnership world now. We don't people in America don't live out of ancient rules. They're making it up on their own. And the philosophy of this era is partnership. And every husband and wife is, you know, making up their own system. And what do I believe? I think husband and wife need to be on the same page. They need to be planning their lives. They need to be, the children are number one after, you know, they need to create a life that works for everyone concerned. I don't know that I would force a certain model on every family. This is not a time in our society where that's going to work. But children are having a hard time.
Right.
Husbands and wives are having a hard time.
And do you agree that a man shouldn't marry a woman that's unwilling to stay home and watch over his children?
If she's unwilling, that's a different problem. You know, why have children if you're going to have other people raise them?
Right. And so should a man marry a woman that's unwilling to stay home and watch over his children?
You know, I think couples have those abstract conversations when they're dating, and then they get married, and a couple of years pass, and it doesn't matter what you talked about over dinner when you were dating. People evolve over time, and so you know, a man can have a woman's word that she's going to stay home with the children, but move the clock a couple of years, and things change, and that's the society we live in.
Right. And should a man marry a woman that's unwilling to stay home and raise his children?
If she says she's unwilling, and that's your condition of satisfaction, that you shouldn't marry that woman.
I agree.
And you should have those conversations before you get married.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's very important to have those conversations. So when you're dating, Barbara teaches people when you're dating, I'm stealing your information here, you date 3 people at once, and when you realize this person is not the right person for me to be dating and I'm not going to marry them, you take them off the dating list, and then you have a new person you put in. And you don't settle for one person until you talk with them and they say, you know, I'd like to get married and I want you to be my partner in life. And then you got to talk about all these things. You say, well, let's think about it. I want this, I want that, I want to stay home with the kids, or I don't want to stay home with kids, or I don't want kids, or I do want. You got to get that all straightened out before you commit. Then when you commit, you're no longer dating. But you don't spend 5 years with someone and then figure out 5 years later, gee, you don't want children. Oh.
Like, what the? That's right.
So the background of that kind of interview is that most people date one person at a time.
Yeah.
They get attached, and they, you know, if they enjoy the attachment, they go on and make serious commitments without really seeing how other people think and without exploring all those questions.
Yeah.
And so it's, you know, they marry emotionally without really interviewing properly.
I tell guys all the time now that when you meet a woman, you go out to lunch or dinner. On that very first date, you ask that woman, are you willing to obey me if we should get married? If she says no, get up and walk away. Leave her at the table and just walk away. That makes sense?
That's a tough word, obey, in this generation.
It's a hard word, but
it's a true word, though.
It's such an interesting word. What we teach our couples is that you've got to be able to talk with each other and listen to each other. So even if you're going to obey the husband, because he's the head of the household.
He's head of the woman.
You still have to listen to each other.
Yeah.
And that's tricky.